Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ingrid van der Merwe, and I want to welcome you to this very first in our series of career conversations. We're very excited about this series, and we have a great panel for you this afternoon. So I'm Head of Careers Advisory at the Careers Service, and we're hoping that if this is your first contact with the Careers Service, it definitely won't be the last. So the point of today is to give you a taste of UCT graduates who are working in the energy sector. And so it gives me great pleasure to introduce our panelists to you. I'm not going to tell you too much about them because that's going to be what they do for you. So without any delay, firstly want to welcome Chido Muzondo, who is an EGS graduate. And then secondly, I want to introduce Lukhanyo Ndube and also Pule Segale. Okay, so without any more delays, let's just go on to the first question. So I'm going to first of all start with Lukhanyo. Lukhanyo, could you let me know? Could you start off by giving me just an idea of your career journey, starting with what you studied and just giving us a run through of the jobs and the organizations that you've worked for? Lukhanyo.
Thanks, Ingrid. Can everybody hear me?
I can hear you, so
okay, good.
Go ahead.
Thanks for that, Ingrid. I studied at UCT, left the university in '96. I did electrical engineering. Then I was fortunate enough, sponsored by ISCO, which is now called ArcelorMittal, ISCO in Vanderbilt Park. So I spent my trainee years with ISCO. And then I left ISCO for Ford Motor Company for a year. And then directly after that, I joined Eskom, Quebec, the nuclear power station. I spent 14 years with them in various roles, both engineering and non-engineering. I then left Eskom, Quebec in 2014, where I joined Kuha Wind Farm. In 2018, I left Kuha. I started a company with a group of friends that are within the energy sector, which is called Thought Capital. That is also into the development of renewable energy projects. I've been with them from 2019. I'm partially still with them, but I'm currently back at Eskom Quebec on a project for the replacement of their steam generators as a commissioning manager. So wow. That is my journey.
Sure. Thanks very much, Lukhanyo. We look forward to hearing a little bit more later. Pule, could you take us through your career journey, please?
Hi, everyone. So I graduated from the University of Cape Town with a Bachelor of Science in Engineering, specializing in civil engineering. I was a recipient of the bursary from the Department of Public Works and Transport Western Cape Government. So when I finished studying, I was seconded to some of the regional construction engineering companies. However, my first exposure in the renewable energy sector was for a global OEM and project sponsor, Acciona Wind Power. They were building their first wind energy project in Gauteng, the Western Cape. From then on, I expanded my scope of work, worked for Mainstream Renewable Power, which is one of the world's leading renewable energy developers. They had multiple roles, from development executive, site manager to project manager. Then I moved also to increase my scope of work to where I am currently as a senior renewable energy advisor for a company called McDonald. It's a global engineering and energy consulting firm. So at the current moment, I'm a senior energy advisor. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thanks, Pule. That's also quite an interesting journey. I'm looking forward to getting more into that as well. And lastly, Chido, could you take us through what you've studied and what your journey has been?
Hi, everyone. So thank you for the invitation and welcome, Ingrid. So I, unlike my fellow panelists, I'm from humanities. So I have an honors in environmental and geographical science, so from EGS. And then after that, I went to Oxford and I studied for a master's in environmental change and management. And then upon my return, before I did my master's, I worked at, my first job was at Isandla Institute there in Cape Town, which is an urban development NGO. Thereafter, I was back at UCT. I was at the African Center for Cities, where I was a research assistant. And then I went to do my master's and I came back. And when I came back, I worked for Pegasus Consulting, which is a management consulting firm in Cape Town. And then I left there and I then joined a startup called Electric Tree, which was focused on bringing carbon capture technology to South Africa. And now I am with the International Institute for Sustainable Development, and I am an energy policy consultant with them. Joined them in April. So they're starting up a South Africa energy program and I'm the lead for South Africa.
Mm. Well, thanks, Chido. I feel we've got a really great panel. I mean, between the three of you, we're spanning a lot of really interesting areas in the sector. So my second question, I'm going to start with Pule. Pule, could you just tell us about your role at McDonald and just a little bit about that organization and just giving us a taste of what you do day to day?
Okay, great. So McDonald is a global multidisciplinary engineering firm. They also have an energy division. So I work in the energy division. We do, however, have other engineering sectors within the group. So I provide, as a senior energy advisor, I provide technical advisory on solar PV and wind energy projects. So we have multiple clients, such as multilateral development banks, development finance corporations, project developers, investors who want to invest in the renewable sector. So they come to us and we provide them with technical advisory. So the hard skills that I required for this job is quite advanced level of project management. So I work on multiple projects at a time. I need to understand the multidisciplinary engineering design review and have a high level of market intelligence. So what I mean when I say market intelligence, understand whether the market is ready to get a project to be developed in that area. For instance, another thing I need to know is the renewable energy policy and regulatory framework in South Africa. So essentially, my day-to-day is liaising with the different clients that we have on multiple projects across Africa and the world, and giving them feedback on whatever requests they have. And I generally write monthly reports on the number of projects I'm working on at a time. Thank you, Ingrid.
Thanks for that very comprehensive, quick overview. I'm sure there are a lot of other things that you do that you haven't mentioned as well. Chido, can you go next and tell us a bit about your current role and your current organization?
Sure. So I work for the International Institute for Sustainable Development, which is an international think tank based in Canada, and they work on various issues concerning people, planet, and our impact on the planet. They have various focus areas from climate change, energy resilience, economics and law, and I'm in the energy practice. So I'm an energy policy consultant. So my day-to-day is right now, for example, I'm writing a report on how to increase renewable energy deployment in South Africa, but particularly community and publicly owned renewables. And so I have different authors who are contributing. So my team, the energy team, is based in Geneva. And so we have people contributing different case studies from different parts of the world. Also part of my work, we are currently convening a policy institute or network, which we're working with Stellenbosch and other organizations and institutions across the world. So my help there is just to help with the consortium convening, sharing of knowledge, information, looking for opportunities for collaboration. And then also I'm also working on, so a lot of our focus is on Eskom in terms of Eskom transitioning to a more diverse energy mix. And so part of the work right now that we've just finished is sort of a report on Eskom's roadmap for transition. So my work is mostly research-based, research, taking calls with my team because I'm the only one in the country, and then just writing.
Thanks. Also very varied, which is so interesting, and lots that we can pick up on in later questions. Lukhanyo, could you take us through your current role, and possibly just also mentioning the project that you're on and the own business that you the business venture that you started with your friends, and how you sort of combine that presently.
Okay, thanks for that. So the role that I'm currently fulfilling with Quebec is that of being the commissioning manager. So Eskom Quebec is currently licensed to operate for 40 years. So as a means to extend the life of the nuclear power station, we are in the process of replacing the steam generators, which is one of the major projects that we have undertaken. That is scheduled for implementation for the first unit in February next year, with the second unit scheduled to be implemented in September the very same year. So we currently in the space of readying ourselves for the implementation of these steam generators. So the manufacturing has been completed and the steam generators are on the way to South Africa as we speak. So the design work that is required for the implementation of this is currently work in progress for us as well. And from our side as commissioning, we are establishing the commissioning means, the process we're going to employ for the actual commissioning, and also the teams that we're going to be deploying for the commissioning, and also the interaction or the engagement, which is one of the challenging activities between ourselves, the contractor, and the plant itself. So that is the stage that we're at with regards to the commissioning of the SGs at Paved Nuclear Power Station. With the work that I'm doing with friends, which I think is close and dearest to me, is that of developing projects both on solar and wind. You do know that the round 5 in South Africa is being a mystery. We still don't know when it's coming, but from our side, we're readying ourselves for such. The other things that we also look at is to provide advisory support to entities that are looking at utilizing rooftop spaces for generating their own energies. That's the area that we also look at. And again, there's your big industries that are looking at also installing their own energy sources, whether it's solar or wind, or wheeling from the existing entities. So that's the space that we currently at. And again, as I said, it's a fun and never clear space, especially with the link with our South African state as it stands. So that's where I am at this point.
Thank you, everybody. I think that I just want to touch in the next question. I mean, if we weren't in the sort of COVID lockdown, sort of remote working situation that we're in at the moment, we might well be having this panel live in the Snape Lecture Theatre and having coffee and sandwiches afterwards. But we're not. It's virtual, and we're all here. And I just wanted to ask each of you to comment on the impact that COVID has had, and I think this is very much in the minds of students that are watching, in terms of them going into into work next year or possibly years after that. So I'm asking first, Chido, if you could comment on how's COVID affected the way you work, what has changed in your context that COVID has had an effect on.
Sure. So firstly, because I'm very grateful. I started this job at the onset of lockdown, so April, March, so my work has been affected in terms of, because I'm the one in South Africa. If it wasn't for this, I would have been able to go to the headquarters, meet the rest of my team. But now it's I'm working alone, but then also it's virtual. So I think that's been quite an adjustment, just to get used to working with people who but you've never actually physically seen them in real life. It's quite an interesting way to start a new job. But then in terms of our actual work, so because we're a think tank, we get funded by either like the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, or different funders. So for the South Africa program, we're lucky that we just got another round of funding from the Danish government. So because a lot in our line of work, because we are NGOs or think tanks, some have lost funding, obviously, because governments are diverting funding to COVID stimulus recovery plans. So we're very, very lucky in that our funder still had money to be able to fund our work. And if that wasn't the case, obviously, then this program wouldn't have started in the country. So yeah, I guess it's just the remote work part for me. And then on the plus side, having been able to have funding to undertake the work that we want to do in the country.
Thanks. Pule, could you give us an idea of how the situation has affected you and your organization?
Yes. So I suppose part of my work, which I mentioned earlier, is that I do a lot of travel. So I visit a lot of these sites that we are either constructing or providing technical advisory on. So we've obviously stopped traveling as much as we did before. We have a lot of virtual site visits, for instance, where either the EPC contractor or the people building those projects provide us information and give us an update on progress via Teams, or for instance. Obviously, we're all working from home now. I don't think we're going to be going back to the office anytime soon. But in terms of sort of investors who wanted to spend money in the new energy space, a lot of funding has also stopped a bit. They want to see what's going to happen in the medium to long term after this COVID-19 pandemic has stopped. So a lot of the projects that I was going to start on, where I'll be providing technical advisory, have been delayed or been postponed. So in my role, I can play different sort of wear different hats. For instance, if I'm working for banks, I'll be a lender's technical advisor. If I'm working for a project developer, I'll be an owner's engineer or independent engineer. So I cover those roles in my current position, most of those people require us to come to site as part of our construction monitoring or operations monitoring. So that has stopped thus far. Thanks, Ingrid.
Thanks, Lukhanyo. Could you elaborate?
I think my colleagues or the other panelists have mentioned it as well. I think the travel ban has been a major impact for us. The contractor that is performing this work is a French company. So surely with that, the direct contact with the contractor has been limited. And yes, that to an extent has an impact on the project from the delay point of view. However, I think that has also introduced this opportunity for us to be, to use your teams and to use all the other means which are not readily used. So I think that's the plus on that side. And then with regards to for new projects, I'm sure we understand that economically, all countries have been impacted. So people investing on newer project has been a challenge, I think, as Pule has indicated. So for service providers like ourselves, then that becomes a challenge as well. But again, it's a futuristic opportunity for when this pandemic is dealt with for us.
I'm actually going to ask not the next question I was going to ask, but because it sort of follows, I'm changing the script slightly. So I want to ask all three of you, and I'm going to ask in this order. So Pule, Lukhanyo, and Chido. Some of you have mentioned the skills that you use in your jobs, and I know that sometimes when students are looking at their sort of future working life, it's quite hard for them to make the connection between what they're studying and what they might do. And we all know that skills are developed not necessarily only in your studies. So I'm wondering if you could just reflect and tell the students what are the skills that you are using now, but also the skills you used in your first jobs, because sometimes you find you build skills as you gain more experience. So just to give them a bit of insight into the skills that you're using. Pule, can we start with you?
Okay, thanks. Mine is kind of esoteric, so it's not necessarily hard skills per se. For instance, I think when I joined mainstream renewable power, I hadn't realized what problem I'd like to solve with the skills that I have, obviously in civil engineering. And once I joined mainstream renewable power, I had a very keen interest in renewable energy, and drawing from the Sustainable Development Goals, I realized that the work I do provides clean, affordable energy and addresses climate change. So I think if you can sort of position yourself in understanding what is it that you want to solve, and then sort of build skills according to that. So I don't want to give you hard, fast, like learn project management, because that's required in any industry. But it's almost on sort of like a deeper level, sort of understanding yourself, and then knowing where you want to go, and then build skills from there. I hope that's helpful.
Yes, it's very helpful. Lukhanyo, could you comment?
I think for me, I agree with Pule. The technical skills you can get hold of those anytime. If there is a particular problem that you're solving and you require some technical skills, surely you can spend a week or so in getting there. The main focus, or the thing that I believe has propelled me to where I am, are those soft skills. The ability to network, the ability to relate. Remember now, if I think about my engineering days, we were taught as engineers, to just solve problems, forgetting that we're solving these problems with people. And if you look at the engineering career at UCT, if it's still the same, I think communication happens at the end. It's a small modular. But I can tell you, if you can master the ability to relate with others, if you can master the ability to network, if you can get to know yourself more first before you can venture into solving some of these problems, it works. It works in that every problem that you'll encounter, you would need to get information from others. Every problem that you'll encounter, you need to understand what strengths or weaknesses that you have so as to source the necessary skills. So for me, I would encourage the guys to focus more on the softer skills, and the hard technical skills, they come easily.
Okay, Chido.
So I agree with both Pule and Lukhanyo, and I really like what Pule said about trying to answer for yourself, or question yourself rather, in terms of what are you trying to solve for, and then sort of trying to build around that. And for me, because I come from humanities, we focused on soft skills, critical thinking, and so in my roles, that's really been fostered. But I think what also I've been exposed to is a lot of projects. So, I never did a course on project management, for example, is, managing projects, managing research projects, not just with people in the office, but with people who are across the world, which, is something, because you have to be aware of people's, different cultures and all of that. I think also just interpersonal skills, like my other panelists said. So, learning how to work effectively with people, learning how to manage people. When I first started managing people, that was, it was a challenge. But it's those skills where you can only really learn them as you start working. So I agree with the panelists. I think, your what's termed softer skills are very important. And, we all entered into the working space having little or no experience in those, except for, in our personal lives. So, employers expect that, and they should be ready and willing to help you to grow in that area.
Thanks, Chido. I'm going to go slightly off script again. This is a question that I hadn't posed to you, because I think it's important for students to hear that sometimes when you start working, you may have developed skills in areas outside your studies. So, so if we can go in the order, Chido, Pule, Lukhanyo, just very briefly, could you tell us things that you did while you were students that you found you drew on those skills that were outside your studies?
Sure. So,
Chido.
I mean, one thing that I actually, and which wasn't part of my studies, but I was a tutor for the EGS department, and we tutored geology and also some EBE students in GIS. And the skills I learned in terms of working with students, helping students to grasp a concept, understand, and then also at some point I was the head tutor, so managing a group of tutors, that has helped me in day-to-day managing a team. Day-to-day, how do you work? How do you make sure that whatever you're working towards in your timelines, making sure that they're all aligned, and that as somebody who is trying to, as a team, you have an end goal, making sure that there is that sort of synthesis or rather synergy rather. So yeah, I think for me, that's probably the biggest thing that stands out, is what I took from tutoring. So don't downplay what you do outside of the lecture theatre, because that, of course, has a part to play in your personal growth when you start working.
Pule.
Yes, so I was in the Engineering Built Environment Student Council as a Treasurer General. I remember we were raising funds for, you don't have them anymore, the RAG floats. So we need to have sort of like business development skills, and the business development skills that I kind of learned there, I need in my job now, because in as much we have clients that come to us, we still need to go source clients for the advisory work that we do. So and then not necessarily in varsity, but in my working life, I was selected as a future energy leader by the World Energy Council. It's because I put myself out there working with the South African National Association. So that was not necessarily part of my day-to-day work, but it was good to incorporate that into my day-to-day work, because like I said before, you need to have very good amount of market intelligence to do the work that I do. And if you expose yourself in that way, you'll be able to acquire that for the benefit of your work. Yes.
Thanks, Pule. Lukhanyo?
I think for me, there's two things that I did differently. I spent most of my time at the chemisters without attending classes. So how did that help me? I think it helped me in bolstering my network. So I got to know people from most of the departments. And I can tell you in my current career now, that still helps me. It's quite easy to engage with the guys that were doing social science for any particular thing or deal. So that has been a plus. I'm not saying sitting at the chemisters will help the students, but that did play a role from the networking point of view. And then the other thing that I did, which was totally outside our department, I did 2 non-core courses in philosophy and in politics. Then, if you ask me why I did that, I would not in any way give you this intelligent answer that I think I have now. So with the philosophy, I think I'm one of few engineers that accept that there are no absolute answers, and I think I gathered that quite clearly from doing philosophy, and I think that has helped me in engaging and dealing with problem solving and engaging with people in my career. And with regards to politics, which was in engineering, if you have a formula, you plug in the numbers, the answer is always the same. But with politics, as you guys see what's happening in the country, politics are totally a complex and different game. How did that help me? It helped me to understand that in an organization, there's your organogram, which is official, and then there's also the other organogram, which is never official. So how does that help one? So if you do know the people that are influential in the organization, it helps you with your development, it helps you with your problem solving, it helps you with many things. So I think for me, that has been a benefit of doing those 2 non-core courses.
Thanks. I'm quite amazed at actually how different your responses were. And I do know, Lukhanyo, I think there are lots of students that are watching here who could just give anything to sit on Jamie stairs right now, and I think we're all missing campus a lot. So linked to that, I wonder if you could, I'm just going to adjust the question about what you'd known as a student, and maybe put it like this, and this is the order that I'm going to. Lukhanyo, Chido, Pule, what would you tell yourself? What would you have liked to have known when you were a student that would have helped you in your first few jobs? So Lukhanyo, could you start?
Okay. So if I was looking at me in the year 1996, before leaving the university, I think the art of learning and having the thirst of learning is what I would have encouraged myself at that point, because I think as a student, the 4 years that you spent in doing the degree, you still have ample time of learning the art of learning. If you can master that, I think for me, if I could be able to do that, I believe it makes life easy, because I think in all 3 of our careers currently, we deal with projects, whether you're in the project environment or not, but every problem becomes a project, and it calls for one to do some research or study further and what have you. And I can tell you, it's if you don't enjoy studying, it becomes difficult. So I think that's the one thing that I would have told myself back in the days. Use the time and not stay sitting at the chemisters, but adapt and find the art of learning, because that I think that's what changes things for me.
Yeah, thanks. Chido?
So I sort of want to cop out and agree with Lukhanyo. So I was going to say, I wish as a student that I knew that it's okay to not know. I think when you come out of a degree, you do your honors, you're like, oh, I have all this knowledge, and it's okay to not know. And I've worked in different sectors, from urban development to climate change to now energy. And, a lot of those roles, well, in any role, really, you have to adapt and be, flexible to learn, like Lukhanyo said. So I think it's just, and also to know that when you're hired for a role, of course, they have the minimum that they look for, but also they do understand that there might be some skills that you don't have. And part of the job is to help you to grow those skills. And there's sometimes when in a new role I would feel like having imposter syndrome, saying, but how did they hire me? I don't have the skills they need for this job. But it's the fact that they can see the capacity for you to learn the skills that are required to undertake that job. So completely agree with Lukhanyo. It's okay. I wish I knew that. It's okay to not know. And also it's okay to say that, because your employer, your organization should be willing to help you grow.
Thank you.
Yes. So I would say go to find roles or find a job where you can show off your skills, where you can show what you can do. So that goes back to sort of understanding what you like, what you don't like, what are your strengths, what are your weaknesses. I know the heart desires a lot of things, but listen for the things that really burn your passion. Light up your passion, because there's no one path of getting to a specific place. I mean, I had a foundation of civil engineering, but I only realized later that renewable energy was my thing. So, and this is where I've been successful. Yeah. So if I had taken more time earlier to listen to sort of these nudges of this you must do, this is what you must do, it's something that I would have used earlier on in my career. Thank you, Ingrid.
Sure. Great, some great thoughts there. So very valuable. I'm just looking. There are people that are monitoring questions for me and WhatsApping them to me, and there's some really great ones that have come through. So, one of my questions was what would you advise students entering the sector? So, but I think if you could incorporate that in your answer to some of the questions. So let me read the first one. Some of them are quite specific, some are quite general. Question from Oscar. He's currently pursuing an MSc in chemical engineering in his final year. What is the procedure to apply for a graduate position in the International Institute of Sustainable Development? I would imagine that's for Chido.
Yeah, so thank you for the question, Oscar. And it's exciting that you're interested in IISD. So ISD traditionally hasn't worked in the country before. So with our program, we're looking to expand potentially next year, but we are potentially looking for an intern to start at some point, maybe the next 6 months. So even if you're doing your master's, you could intern. It's a paid internship, and that's a good way to just get into the organization, because often, obviously, if we have an intern for 3 months, then that internship becomes a role. So at the moment, there aren't any openings, but just keep an eye out on the website. I don't know if you have my email from the promo info, but contact me. And yeah, if there's a consultancy opening, apply for it. If there's an internship, apply for it, because that's probably the best way to get into the organization. But yeah, do contact me, and if we start advertising, or rather when, I can definitely let you know.
Thanks, Chido. And just to anyone, you're welcome to contact us at the Careers Service, and we can pass on Chido's email, particularly to Oscar. The second question is directed to any of the panelists. You don't all have to answer, but to those who want to, what factors influenced the decisions that paved your career paths? What factors influenced the decisions that paved your career paths?
I can start with that one.
Thanks.
I suppose one might think you should focus, or at least take into consideration the money that you're going to get. But I since realized, to be honest, you need to work beside the money. So follow something that you really want to do, and the remuneration will come. That's what I've realized. So that was definitely not a factor. I think I answered it briefly before by asking myself, what is it that I want to solve with the skills that I have? And that really did influence my career path thus far. Yeah.
Okay, Lukhanyo, was it you that wanted to add?
I'll go in as well, but I'll go in after Chido.
Sorry, I'm not sure who guessed number 3. Are you, okay, sorry, because your names are there.
I'll get number 3.
Okay, so Chido, can you go first, and then Lukhanyo?
Thanks, Lukhanyo. So for me, what what influenced my decision to sort of embark on this journey, and it's going to sound very cheesy, but I promise I'm not lying, is when I was, when the Inconvenient Truth, the climate change documentary came out about, 14 years ago from Al Gore. I watched that, and it was the first time I'd heard of this term climate change. And from then on, I sort of wanted to find ways to be in that sector. And obviously energy, depending on, which side you're working on, has a role to play in climate change. So for me, it really was just being exposed to materials that really startled me and really shook me and said, how can I contribute to what is already being done? Mm. And that has been my guiding factor, influence.
Mm. Thanks. Lukhanyo?
Okay. Yeah, now for me, it's interesting enough. Firstly, my name Lukhanyo means light. And it so happened that my father and my cousin were electricians. So I think my name and the fact that I grew around people that were, were in the space of energy influenced me to do such. In hindsight, now that I think about it, I always thought I was not in the, in the space that I wanted to be. I thought I landed in the space by mistake. But as a person, my values, I enjoy sharing, I enjoy helping, I enjoy giving to others. And if I think about the load sheddings that we're currently having, it takes away from, from all of you. So for me, energy and electrical energy specifically is basically my way of interacting and giving to, I think, to the people of South Africa. And the challenges that we're currently facing are still a testament for me to continue to be in this space. So I think that's what drew me to it.
Mm. Thank you. I'm actually just thinking it's quite appropriate that some of our staff members have been affected by load shedding for this very webinar. But anyway, we won't say more about that. Okay, next question. There are quite a few great ones. This one's from Ziev. I'm currently in my third year of electromechanical engineering, and just want to ask what you would say are good possible steps to take after I complete my degree. This is in terms of internships or work I should aim to go into and areas I should look out for if I want a fruitful career in the energy sector. What would you advise? Perhaps if the panelists can wave at me, it might be if you'd like to answer.
Okay.
Hello, Lukhanyo.
Thought Pule was going to take this one.
Well, yes, okay, let me start. I mean, I did civil engineering, but electromechanical is actually directly related to energy infrastructure. So I do multidisciplinary engineering design review. So I actually work with electrical engineers, I work with mechanical engineers. So it depends on if you want to be a technical specialist. If you want to be a technical specialist, then you can follow through with OEMs. So these are original equipment manufacturers. So I mentioned one earlier, Acciona Wind Power, Siemens, and them. They provide the sort of the wind technology that we use in South Africa. So if you can research them. And in terms of there are a number of multidisciplinary consulting firms who have an energy department which you can look into. They essentially do the similar thing that we do at McDonald. So it depends really if you want to. So for instance, I'm not a technical specialist, for instance. I'm an energy project manager, but I need to know each and every part of sort of the value chain and the project life cycle, including some financial modeling. So it depends what you want, and then if you know what that is in terms of technical specification, a specialist, or sort of like a generalist project manager, and then you can take it from there. I think both are truly fruitful careers.
Right. Any other ones? Chido or Lukhanyo, do you want to respond?
Okay, I'll go for it. So for me, I would take what Chido said earlier, that firstly, I think the student should leave the school or the university not with the assumption that they know everything, and be specific of what they would want to do. So any opportunity that would come their way for them to do their internship or for them to do their practical, I would say take that, but in grabbing it, understand life is about connecting the dots. So if you are in that particular environment, make sure you consume as much as possible. So if I think about it, if you look at these big companies, there is a chance where you can be hidden in a corner and be lost for decades. So my advice would be ensure wherever you're at, you're visible, you find problems and deal with them. And if you hear people talking about problems, be party to that as well. And that's going to be the one way that propels you. It does not in any way necessarily mean that the first company that you work for will be your final company. I think some practitioners in the space do say that people change, jobs more than 7 times before they find a space where they are comfortable at. So for me, that would be the advice at this point.
Could I go with the next question? Okay, a follow-up question. Which technical skills do you use most commonly these days? Any takers?
Technical skills. Analytical skills are pretty much technical. So my thing about well, at least my experience with undergraduate studies or your first degree is that they give you a foundation of how to think, so critical thinking, and beyond that, that is the most important thing. Beyond that, you can learn other aspects of the career you want to follow. I say this because I'm a software engineer in a sort of electromechanical industry, but because I've got the foundations of critical thinking. So that's what I usually use on a day-to-day basis. Thank you, Ingrid.
I also agree with Pule, and I was actually going to say that because I don't have a hard built environment degree. I don't have sort of some of those technical skills. So for me, I was going to say critical thinking and then also reasoning, because a lot of my work is research based and also policy orientated, trying to influence policy. It's about looking at an issue and then saying, how do we interact with this issue? What responses can we investigate for this issue? And then also like linking the dots in, how does that translate into policy? So I would also just say critical thinking, reasoning, and just analyzing, analytical skills is what I use.
Okay.
Can I add?
Yes. You build on that, Pule?
Yeah, so the critical thinking skills you learn from MAM 2000 or MAM 2884, the mathematics course with the vector calculus. That's critical thinking there. So do well in that course.
Sorry, for any other students who are like EGS, like commerce, whatever, critical thinking can be learned in different courses. So, yes, mine was in, so I'm just teasing Pule, but it's a skill that can be picked up and honed in different areas.
That's correct. Yeah, I was just my example from engineering background. Yeah.
Teasing is good. Lukhanyo?
Yeah. So for me, I think the thought that comes to mind now is, within the energy space and engineering, all we're trying to do is we're trying to solve problems. And what is of interest is, I remember there's a book that I read that says the summation of happiness is about, solving those good problems. And the interesting thing about solving any problem is, if you have not understood what you're trying to solve or the question that you're trying to answer, you can get any answer that you require. So my encouragement to the students would be the art of listening, the art of trying to understand the issue from a system point of view, and also from its basic elements would help them in solving problems. I remember when we were on our final year as electrical engineers, we were doing this communication course that I'm referring to, and the lecturer wanted to play a video. So when the tape recorder didn't play, all we did was to come up with our tools to try and open it and fix it. And she said, wait, let's see whether is it plugged in. And it was not plugged in, and that was the only problem.
Yeah.
So yeah, before we become mighty in solving the world, let's firstly understand what we're trying to solve. That would be my advice.
Thank you. The next question is directed at Chido. What would you recommend for humanities students? What humanities students should do if they're interested in entering the sustainable energy sector?
So it of course depends on what you're studying in humanities. I think, and I think either Lukhanyo or Pule spoke to this earlier. I think it's about looking at what area you want to. So you want to go into sustainable development, but like there are lots of organizations, companies who fall under that umbrella. So what specifically under that do you want to work on? So for example, if you want to work on climate change, that's part of sustainable development. The organizations like South North in Cape Town who work on that. So try and like narrow down what exactly under that you want to work on, and then look at the organizations, the companies associated with that, and then see what they have open. If not, maybe just reach out and say, listen, this is me. But yeah, just try and narrow down your interest and then reach out.
Thank you. Lukhanyo?
The other thing, if I understood the question very well, that is also within the energy space. Remember now, the human capital, which is the driver of the sustained supply of this electricity or energy that we're providing, needs to be motivated and driven as well. So the human resources is an area that one can look at. The other issue is with these new entities that are popping up in South Africa that Pule is talking to. These IPPs, one of their leg beyond generating revenue, they have an obligation to provide better arrangement for the communities that they operate in. So things like socio-economic development, enterprise development is another area where, if you're from the humanities, you can participate in. The engagement with those communities, helping them to coexist. That's another area.
Thank you. I just want to alert us all, we've got about 10 minutes left and we still have about 3 or 4 questions to deal with. So perhaps if we can just keep the answers quite short so that we can go through all of them. This one's from Stefan. What would you tell recent engineering graduates in the job market in 2020, especially without sponsorship or training programs coming out of university? Are data science and digital skills essential to transition into the energy sector for graduate entry-level jobs, or for someone that didn't study computer science? I think some of what you've said has answered that, but if you want to just elaborate on that, anyone?
Yeah, I'll just a brief one. So technology is going to disrupt every sector, and energy is definitely one of them. We're looking at smart grids, and sort of. I know there's a way we can exchange electrons through a smart grid using blockchain, etc. I didn't learn it from school, but if you look at, for the next 20 years, you should keep that in mind when you graduate. How do I then incorporate that for the start of my career? Because it's definitely going to get to that point. Yeah.
Okay, could I maybe move on to the next one? Jessica asks for your advice on skills that students wouldn't necessarily learn from university that you might recommend we strengthen during our free time and during holidays, or topics for short courses that we wouldn't necessarily think of doing. Any takers?
I can try that one. I think maybe right now also because everything's remote, try looking at courses like coding, blockchain is good, any crypto, and then also like you can get some theoretical project management skills. I would say, I'm not saying coding is in every job, but it could be an asset to an organization. And then what else can you do outside of university? If you have an informal job, or let's say you're tutoring a student, a high school student, that's all things you can translate on your CV to say you have these skills. So yeah, I know a lot of young students who are tutoring high school students now who aren't going to school, and yeah, other jobs, research assistant jobs, if some research organizations have them. So some of them are looking, for like data collection, or like trying to organize data using different methods like Python, R. So that's also, yeah, different suggestions.
So So I recently completed a course on Coursera, Sustainable Development Goals, and its targets. There was it gave me a sort of a more background on what I already had information on. So it's totally free on Coursera. The World Bank has one on edX. It's called Unlocking Investment in Emerging and Developing Markets. Something that you could do. Also a free course. There, if you're looking for technology-specific courses, edX, which is also part of the World Bank, is providing so installation of solar PV plants, installation of solar pico solar equipment. So those are courses you can do if you have the interest in that. But in general, a lot of the courses on Coursera that are related to your interest would be helpful.
Okay, great. Just also a reminder about LinkedIn Learning courses, which you can search for topics there. There's lots available there as well. Okay, a question from Ndube. I hope I'm pronouncing your name correctly. I did actuarial science in my undergrad and I'm doing honours in statistics. Would you say there are opportunities for someone with my technical skills, as in maths and statistics, in the energy sector, specifically with regards to research?
The IPPs that we're speaking of, they do mostly modeling. I think Chido in a space as well. They do that, and most of the guys that partake in that are your actuaries. So I think that would help. And I think in general, Chido spoke of the studies that they did for Eskom in trying to map their energy mix going forward. And people that do modeling, people that work with numbers would fly easily in that space. So there is a career path for you.
Great. Right, can I move on to Jessica as a question? Have you done a lot of work with lawyers in the energy and sustainable energy sector? Is there a need for lawyers? Is this a very saturated field, or is there a growing need for lawyers within this field?
I can start.
A lot of laughter there. So
I can start. Yes, I mean, as a technical advisor, I work with a lot of legal advisors. So there's definitely a market for them, and they put in the fees there in a financial model, you know, that make a lot of money. So, so yeah, there are lawyers in the energy sector, especially for the kind of work I do, where we provide a lot of advisory, which requires funding. So, like I said, we have debt, equity, and there's contracts. I mean, there's a lot of contracts in the industry, so lawyers are definitely required.
Can I also just quickly add another way that lawyers are also sort of prevalent in the sector is, I don't know if you know the Center for Environmental Rights. So they're a company with lawyers, and so if you're interested in like environmental or energy litigation, you can also do that. So not just like drafting contracts, but for example, if the Minister of Energy doesn't respond to a comment for some sort of public participation, then they will take legal action against that. So it also depends on what your interest is, and there definitely is there are roles for you.
Ingrid?
Yes.
So in my role as the CEO of Kucha Wind Farm, in line with what Pule was saying, I engaged with lawyers when we're talking to the lenders, when we're talking to your Eskom, and yes, even writing a letter to say hi. The lawyers would be required, so that's the one part. But more interesting, if you look at the transition in energy, you're having more of the independent power producers, and the ability for them to connect or sell to whoever the end user is done via contracts. So that there's been, I think, a growth in activities for the lawyers with this IPP introduction. So there's hope.
Great. Okay, we come to our last question. I'm going to just ask, because I'll close off after this, very interesting question that comes, it says for Chido, but I think I'd like everybody to just very briefly, possibly in 1 or 2 sentences, which drastic changes do you think need to happen within the world for sustainable development to be truly achieved? And what can we do individually to help this? So we're going to end with that before I close off and say thank yous. Who'd like to go first? Drastic changes that need to happen in the world or with us. Chido.
So I can start, and I say this based on the work that we do in the energy sector in South Africa, is I think countries need to take seriously the need to move to transition away from fossil fuels. So, you know, in like South Africa and sort of Lukhanyo, I know you work for for Eskom, but I mean nuclear is not, you know. But I think there needs to be a stronger focus to transition away, because you can't have there's no way I believe, and the science shows that, to continue on our current trajectory. And how can we help in that little way? Well, for example, if like, I don't know, Greenpeace has an activation, sign up. There's an organization called 350.org Africa. They do a lot of work with, you know, trying to help Eskom in terms of transitioning to a more diverse energy mix. So yeah, that's my quick answer. Okay, Ingrid?
Yeah.
So I would say, Ziv, you must read something called Donut Economics. So it talks about the limits that you must live within for us to achieve sustainable development. So in South Africa, for instance, South Africa is a signatory to the Paris Agreement. So we have nationally determined contributions to carbon reductions. We still have 80% coal providing power to South Africa. Obviously, we've seen with the RRP moving more towards sort of renewable energy, which is a good thing. Drastically, we need a whole systems change, but they will require, because South Africa is such an interesting country, repurposing of skills for everybody to take part in the green economy going forward. But that requires a lot of regulatory framework that needs to change, or at least sort of implementation of the regulatory framework that we already have. So that's my piece on that.
Can you final comment?
I think for me, what comes to mind is a quote. I don't know who said it, but it goes as follows: "If we live simple, so that others can simply live, then we'll be able to find each other in the midway." So I'm in support to Chido that you know, the banning of fossils is not helping us, but in a sustainable fashion it need be. But I think what we also need to do is we need to embrace thinking and not be stuck on what we know now. So I'm hoping that the students at university are not reading the same book that we read back in the days, because I'm sure that was stuff what they are thinking. We really need to get new solutions in how we do things, and you know, powering how we our energy sources. So I think that's what needs to happen.
Well, we've come to the end of our hour, and I really want to very warmly thank Chido, Pule, and Lukhanyo for giving up your time. These three people are very busy professionals, and we greatly value the wisdom that you've shared today, and just the tips and information. It's been very, very helpful and great. So thank you very, very much. Just in closing, just a little heads up, we have another career conversation on Friday afternoon. We have 3 UCT graduates, all women, so it's our sort of Women's Day one, that all have an environmental career. So not energy, but they are mostly science graduates, but working in very interesting contexts within the environment. And we also want to invite you, if you haven't connected with us at the Careers Service, you all as students have a profile on My Career, and through that you can access opportunities, you can book appointments with us, you can ask questions, and we can get back to you as careers advisors. And we help students to prepare for applications, or even to work out strategies of what you want to do with your lives. That's also what we do. But we do a lot of CV reviews and helping students to present themselves well for whatever they're applying for. So that's it for this afternoon, and thank you so much to our panelists. It's been an absolute pleasure to host you, and we've all learned a huge amount, and it's been fun as well. So thank you very much, and have a good day, everyone.
Thank you for having us.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.